I'm Central.
Central,
Yeah.
Matt and I are in the same
This is
time
so
zone.
exciting.
That's always a huge momentum. Matt reporting live from CNCF. Which hotel, Matt, are you reporting in from?
I am staying at the Blackstone, which is part of the Marriott something collection.
Okay,
You know,
so you're getting your Marriott points. What?
Yeah, I'm getting myself some Marriott points, or some Bonvoy points. But yeah, it's a Marriott. The rooms are nice. I have not used anything else here, but they did collect some mail and packages for me, so that's nice.
I'm
Not
looking at
mail,
your
but
screen
packages.
here. Like, are you like cut off 3x4, or is it actual? Is it just like the drapes or something? Oh no, it is 3x4.
No, it's 3x4. I'm
Okay.
on the FaceTime
Okay.
camera.
Well, that's hey
The
man, people. It is what it is, people.
oh crap! It's on standard definition. Nobody wants that.
Oh wow!
We want the
Oh, it's a
full
whole new Mount
blast.
Ray right there. Wow! You just
The
like
full
it's like you
blast.
just saw
Yeah.
on the filter.
So if this sucks, you can blame Firefox. I changed browsers when Chrome wouldn't load it, but it turned out it was like a USB permissions thing. So I can go back to Chrome if this is not good, but it's Firefox.
I think it's fine. I mean, we're gonna roll with it. It was a USB thing. All right. Well, if anyone is anyone watching this at this very moment, I guess the conference is it over? I was gonna say, are you still gonna? Is the conference?
Yeah, the conference just ended.
You're there out. You'll be out roaming, having dinner with friends. So you could see
roaming,
Matt Ray.
Yeah. You could. I did run into a fair number of listeners this week.
That's what I like to hear.
I handed out some stickers.
All right. Are you out? Did you
I still have a small handful. I think I gave
failure.
out like
failure
4
by the
or 5.
Community. Failure by the community. I'm gonna get on everyone. That's disappointing. Yep. So okay. All right, Matt. Well, are you booted up? You ready to go? You ready to fire off some CNCF hot takes?
Yeah. I'm just looking like keynotes. You know, I watched them, but I don't remember them.
That's fine. That's fine. If that's your take, that's your take. You have to stand by it. That's it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I can riff on this morning's. It's in my mind at least. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure you'll have some. I'll ask you some questions. We'll extract some good information from you. That way everyone that didn't attend can write up a trip report like as if they were there.
They're not gonna get that from me. It's like if you spent all week in the open cost kiosk, this is the report.
Oh, that'll be good too.
Yeah.
All right. You ready to get going?
Sure.
All right. Okay, Matt. So I think we have some controversial or potentially controversial news out of Apple. And again, we being the #1 Apple podcast in the world, I feel like we have to cover these things one by one. So there was an interview with like a senior VP of something over at Apple. And that person,
not the VP of cables, but one of the other
VPs. VP of cables, different one. Okay.
VP of RAM.
That person insists that 8 gigabytes of unified memory equals 16 gigs of regular RAM. And I'm just very torn on this, right? Because I was thinking about why. It's like it's almost like you have to like everything in life, you need to return to your childhood to understand why it is you have certain beliefs. And I think just when we came up, right, computers were relatively new, and RAM and disk space were always at a premium. Like you just never had it. You never had enough. When you broke the 386, the 486, whatever it is, the Atari, it was always like you would run out of whatever you needed, right?
Yes,
it's just a given. And it was just so costly, unfortunately, like the huge leaps between these computers. I mean, for those of the younger listeners, they just will have no idea.
You don't understand that my parents shelled out $200 for 128K.
But you just remember, I don't know if you remember, I mean, like, people don't remember, like just getting a hard drive at one point was a big deal. They didn't have the disk, right?
I bought a 60 megabyte hard drive.
Like it was huge though.
For
and you were like
$180.
and you're like, this is the most, who could ever need more? Now, I wouldn't even say that. It was just like, oh my gosh, this is going to free up so much space. And the same thing is like when RAM would move up, it was like a huge thing. So,
Always.
the reason I'm bringing that is like, maybe I'm just bringing my old school, if you will, youth experience with computers to this, to this new world. Because I was thinking about, as much as I'm ingrained in my personal computer upbringing, always get more RAM, I have never, for the most part, even known how much RAM is in my iPhones and really all the mobile phones. I just
True.
literally,
So true.
I don't even know. In fact, I never even realized it unless I just happened to read by it. So I was like, well, so maybe this is sort of the thing. It's like the new school, like the millennials and stuff. They're just like, I don't RAM. What's that? We don't like,
What's that?
we just buy the phone. It works. But then I think I'm gonna call it Gen X. Is like we're a little bit like, I don't know. We're just worried. We're just. At least
We're worried about RAM.
I'm gonna project myself onto all of us. Is like we're just worried about RAM. We remember when there wasn't enough RAM and you always needed more RAM. So where do you come down on this? Like, because also too, I like, you and I think both, we like to see new computer architectures come out, new ways of doing things. We like to read about the chips. So like, I'm open to the idea that like, okay, I don't know, like I haven't delved into this, but like maybe this RAM is super fast and the swapping, which was the huge penalty, right? When you heard the hard drive, like cranking it around and you were like, you didn't need a utility to tell you were swapping. You could hear it swapping, right? On the old school hard drive. You heard the platters going. So so maybe this is the new way, or maybe this is just Apple's marketing hype. So where do you come down? Now, I'm going to ask you a very specific question because this came up in the Slack. It's like, for a laptop that is labeled as Pro, right? So a MacBook Pro, is 8 gigs of unified memory enough?
No. This is
Definitive no.
this is a very, very, very definitive no. I think they had a price point they had to hit, and they decided that they had to cut something at price point. And what's the size of the hard drive or the SSD? It's not a hard drive. It's an SSD. It's small too. I bet it's probably like a
256,
256,
right?
which is a ridiculously small size for something that you call pro. What are you going to put on this? One video? You're going to go, do one video of raw editing. You're gonna master one record or something. Because this is a pro laptop, or you're going to do design one building. Nothing is going to fit on 256 megs of storage for a professional, right? My kids have M1 MacBook Airs, and they have 256, and they've got the 8 gigs of RAM. And you know
Mhm.
what? The RAM for kids is fine with 8 gigs. But you know what? My son, he's in college. He complains about 8 gigs of RAM. And he's running a little bit of numerical modeling. He's doing some of that math stuff and statistics.
Mhm.
And for you know uh, for him to be complaining about 8 gigs, and it's not a pro, and he's already complaining about it, and he has to boot up onto his Windows machine with 16 gigs so he can run these
Oh,
stupid
right there.
models,
Take that,
right?
Apple. That
Yeah, take that,
that's
Apple, right?
awesome. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so, they've got Airs, and the reason they have 256 and 8 gigs is because the Air had to hit the 999 price point. I got
Mhm.
you. We understand that, but with the Pro, it's like you already blew past 1,500, 1,600. I don't even know how expensive these things are. You might as well outfit it as something that people are not going to be
All right. Well, let
pissed
me
off if
offer
they
a quick
have.
correction because I was a little worried. I don't want to pass on. The latest lineup is this. The lowest end is it is 8 gigs of unified memory, but it is 512 of storage. So it's 512. So I don't know. I don't
Okay,
know. It changes your
512.
mind.
512 is I have 512 in my current laptop. It's it's tight sometimes, but I also have like 200 gigabytes of video and movies and photos and so that stuff I can clear off, and it's fine, because I guess a professional doesn't store personal stuff on a laptop, but I do. But I mean, I kind of feel like RAM is approaching a point. I was making this point last night. Like, I kind of stopped noticing CPU speeds somewhere around like 1.4 gigahertz. Like, I can't tell you how fast my laptop is right now. I don't know. And I was an overclocker back in the days. Like I used to know. I used to care, right? I mean, I had the dual Celeron 450 on the BX, right? I mean, I used to like live and die by this stuff, squeezing for CPU, and now I don't even know how fast it is. And I feel like RAM is approaching that, but not
Hmm.
yet.
It's not there yet.
No.
Not there yet.
Well,
No,
no,
no.
no, no. I mean, for consumers, 8 gigs is fine, but don't call it pro.
Don't call for okay. All right, that's fair. So okay, so I think we're definitively against it. Now, I want to go back. I just want to take up for the casual user here because this was also debated quite a bit. People are like 256 is more than enough for a casual user, and I guess I get it. And if you ask ChatGPT, which of course, maybe we'll get into some OpenAI. For the casual user, it's like
ChatGPT says, "Feed me, I'm dying."
yeah, ChatGPT said 256 was fine for casual users, but 512 was needed for average users, which I don't, what like,
Well, apparently I'm
I'm not sure. I
average.
guess I could have asked the follow-up prompt, like, what's the difference between an average and a casual user? But I want to go back in time, back to the platter days. I was going to say, like, if we
The platter
remember
days.
before SSDs, right? Remember hard drives were getting huge, right? Because the platters were getting big and big and big, right? And you got to the point where like you could very reasonably get like a terabyte for pretty cheap. Now it was slow, right? And then remember Apple even had that hybrid drive where it was like
I had some
partially was an
hybrids. Yeah,
SSD.
yeah.
So even so going back in time, I think we did prove that like people wanted more space because it was cheap, right? And it was just like, and really what you wanted for the casual user was just like, hey, don't worry about it. Like you just got more than you need, and that's fine. If you suddenly start like backing up your computer, downloading a lot of videos, downloading files, like it was just all taken care of for you. And that's my case to Apple. It's like you can manage it and keep it under 256. I don't want to say that's not possible, but I think you have to work at it a little bit. And as a casual user, I also think you can like download one or two applications that you're just like, oh, I'll just try these out. And either the applications themselves will be huge or the files they create should be huge. So that's my case to Apple. It's like they should make it easier for everyone by just giving everyone more than enough. And I get it. Like I get they want to make more money. It's a $200 upgrade from 8 gigs to 16, and it's a $200 upgrade, I think, from 256 to 512, which has got to be huge margins. I don't know exactly what it's costing. It's definitely a lot of profit inside that number.
Yeah, I mean, I just peeked over on Best Buy. You can buy a terabyte SSD for $48.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the part that feels a little bit like Apple is. I mean, while they're kind of doing everyone a disservice, it's like, hey, you really just want to give people a computer, especially a casual user. It's like this thing should last for 5 years, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, and just
I
like,
mean, my
and
kids,
don't let people fill up the disk, right? Don't let them just
yeah,
do weird stuff.
yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, I'm pretty disappointed, and they clearly didn't share the memo with their friends at Adobe because, like, Photoshop's like you gotta have 16 gigs, and so it's like, oh, apparently you're not a pro. You need
well, I
to
think
be.
it's even like on your if I don't know if like this is not a necessarily something that average users will do, but if you happen to start taking a bunch of videos with your iPhone, God forbid you actually leave it on like raw, like the actual,
Oh
like
yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's like 3 minutes later, it's like everything's full. Your hard drive's
Well, that's what
full,
I'm saying.
your
Like,
phone
what
is
kind of
full.
pro
Like
shooting
you don't
a
even know what
6-minute
happened.
movie? Yeah.
iCloud is full. Like you've just like destroyed everything. And you're like, I don't even know what happened. I clicked one button, I clicked raw, and the entire internet filled up into storage in 6 minutes. So, all right. Well, listen, I think we're going to give the definitive word here. So no, eight is not enough. In fact, it's a minimum 16. And then, of course, whenever I'm looking for these things, I'm always like, I don't know. I just want more. I'm always like, I think I need 32. But of course,
I'm okay with 16. Like I I
yeah.
use my kids and my wife. Their laptops have 8, and it's like it's fine, but I'm not gonna run VMs. I'm not gonna, I'm good. I hit that, but that's because wait a second, I'm a pro.
Yeah. Well, no, the other thing is that it's just going to take some getting used to. Is we're all got to get used to this multiples of 3. So it's whatever the 3 channels, and now suddenly you can get 18 gigs of RAM. I don't know how I feel about that. Is do I need that? I don't know. I want someone. I do think I know there's Geekbench, and that's like the definitive one for measuring the processor. There must be the equivalent. I really just want someone to be like load up like I don't know 4,000 Chrome tabs, a really big Excel spreadsheet, and,
When did Chrome? Yes. How do we
Slack,
turn Chrome into
um,
the new benchmark?
yeah,
Because
Slack, Outlook. I got Teams, and just like that's what I need. That's what I need. A memory profile of just like
that's what you need.
some
I mean, the
arbitrary. a white collar workforce of just like, I'm not really accessing the processor. I just got all kinds of crazy stuff on the desktop.
I
That's what
think
I
you
want.
might be onto something because if you look over on like the gaming and their space, they have they've got dozens of benchmarks, and they're all based off games that they'll run some demo that everyone agrees on at some certain
Mhm.
resolution, and so you can compare apples to apples. But we need to have like the Microsoft Office benchmark, and literally it opens like 4 or 5 it opens Teams, and wow, yeah, this is
Yeah,
gonna be our
we
benchmark. It's
need the
gonna be
knowledge worker
Microsoft
benchmark.
Office benchmark,
Yeah, yeah, the
and
knowledge
then
worker
and then
benchmark.
of course you're gonna need Benchmark Pro and Benchmark Home Edition, and
Absolutely,
but
right?
yeah,
And then you're gonna need
yeah,
it like when your coworker sends you like this unbelievably large Excel spreadsheet that you don't even know how it works, but you're like, yeah, I gotta work on that too. So, all right. Well, listen, while we work on getting that, we're just gonna say we all want 16 gigs of RAM. So don't let your
yes,
friends buy
please.
the eight gig RAM. Make sure that they
Tell
pay
them,
that.
to buy an Air with 16 gigs.
Yeah, no, there you go. That'll stick it to Apple. That's right. You don't need that nice monitor. Just get the 16 gigs. So, all right. Well, speaking of real work, and Matt, you've been our person on the scene. You've been at this. I always want to say the CNCF, but I guess it's what is this? It's KubeCon is the
KubeCon,
official name
yes,
of this
KubeCon
conference, and
North
it's also
America.
Linux. It's also like Linux something or another.
It's also called like Cloud Native Con. I haven't
That's right.
seen
Cloud
that
Native
logo
Con,
this one.
KubeCon,
They might have
whatever.
dropped
You've
it. I
been
don't
there.
know.
All right, so you've been there all week. So let's start with our the basics here. One, where is it, and give us the vibe check. What was the vibe of the conference?
Yeah, so it's we're here in I was gonna say sunny, but not sunny Detroit or Chicago. Detroit was the last one.
That's
Um,
right. You're
the
in a dark,
weather in
windy
Chicago.
Chicago.
Yes, I'm in a dark place that the sun went down apparently at 4 o'clock, which was shocking. I was like, oh, get to my hotel about 4:30. I'll go for a run. The sun was down. The wolves were out. Um, but yeah, it was. Sun goes down early. The weather's been better than Detroit, if that's anything. Detroit was sub freezing and sleety, and it's been a little bit of rain, but mostly dry and windy. Uh, hence the windy city. But you know, the weather's been good. The conference is, I was kind of talking with a coworker on the way back. He's like, how did this compare to, how do you think this compared to the last, Amsterdam? How do you think it compared to Detroit? He'd been to LA before that, and he's like, we kind of agreed that they deliver a very steady product, which is good. It's consistent. You're going to have high quality talks across the board. Generally, they've ironed out most of the wrinkles of planning. I definitely have a few issues here and there that I've run into. For example, none of the working session stuff was on the schedule, and it was impossible to find because they didn't list the room numbers. Apparently, it was hidden under bad CSS, but I never knew where my meetings were on Monday. And so I get there, I finally found it, um, and there's somebody in my room, and he's like, oh, you found it too. And so then I went and updated the blog that told people where to find it because I'd put the wrong room because I had the wrong instructions, and somebody else found it because I'd updated the blog 5 minutes after it had started, and then that was it. Like I had plans for other companies to come and talk to each other, nobody could find it. So that was
Mm, mm.
super disappointing. And during our session, two other maintainers from two other projects came to our room and said, "How'd you get so many people?"
Painful. It's painful.
So
Well, do you know what the attendance was? Was it like the
I heard
typical?
I've heard it's just under 10,000.
Okay.
Um, or
Someone said it was a
of
little bit bigger in Europe. I was watching the
yeah,
Slack,
I
but
heard I
that's
heard Europe was about 12,000. So
okay.
Amsterdam
So
might
similar
might have,
sizes.
maybe it was the weather. Maybe it was more convenient for more overseas folks. I'm not sure. They're
Maybe
both equally
Amsterdam is
far from
more
me.
exciting than
M-
Chicago. I mean, who's to know?
Amsterdam in the spring is mighty fine. So that might be it too. But I'd say content wise, very very similar as a vendor. I was not working the vendor booth, but we had strong strong leads at the booth over in the kiosk, the Project Pavilion, open source land.
Mhm.
A lot of great conversations. No complaints about any of that. It was all very good. Food might have been better in Amsterdam, as my coworker pointed out. I did get food poisoning, so I'm not a good judge
Sure.
of food.
Yeah, true. That's a good point. You look healthy right now, knock on wood. So, but
Oh
what
God,
about
you jinxed me.
I was gonna say, what about the keynotes? I think somebody mentioned the Oracle one stood out. Was like Oracle kind of like trying to claim the high ground in the Red Hat Oracle drama? Am I reporting that correctly?
I, everyone discounted it because it's Oracle, but the
Mm.
guy was and
Was it a white suit? Is that what
yeah,
I
yeah,
heard from the reports?
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah. Much
we
much
got to get a picture or
snazzier.
something. I gotta
Yeah,
find something
I
that
gotta
day.
go. I'm sure I can
Like
go
you're
find a
all in. If
keynote
you're
and
like,
send it to
I'm
you.
gonna go up on stage in a white suit from Oracle, and I'm gonna call out Red Hat. Like that is a confident person. I think it's a very confident person. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that. I mean, the keynotes. I follow what a friend of the show, Bridget said. It's the Cote method. I
Mhm.
watch it from the hotel room and enjoy a leisurely breakfast and multitask. But yeah, so I watched the keynotes from my hotel, and they were generally fine. None of them were terrible. Which is there have been some terrible ones previously. No,
Mhm.
but also it was just kind of, generally okay. You know, uh, I'm actually kind of hard pressed to say a lot stood out to me. I always appreciate like the graduation and incubation rundown where they're like, all right, incubator projects, you all get 30 seconds, go. And, they just rattle off and, hi, I'm here, blah, 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 blah. They, ramble off their projects. Um, I kind of like it. I'm looking forward to doing it for OpenCast eventually. Um, but
Yeah, like
yeah,
where are you? Are you an incubated project? What
we,
level
we,
are
we, we have applied for incubation. So
you? Okay, so you're like you're
I'm working
pre-seed,
the
as they would
process.
say.
I'm working the process. Yeah.
We need a word
I
for pre-incubation. I don't know. I'm trying to think what that would
Sandbox.
be.
I mean, we're in the
Sandbox?
sandbox, but
Okay, you're in the
we've
sandbox. All right.
yeah, not not the litter box as I heard someone refer to it. So
Oh, that's
it's
brutal. Oh, that's brutal. That'd be funny though, if they actually had like a giant litter box. They put all your little kiosk in the litter box. That'd be quite funny. I like
no,
that.
we were the project pavilion, and it was all projects of all types. But yeah, we
Well,
had
here, let's
had
go over the
good.
numbers. I think you put these in here. I'll just read them out here. So I guess it's there are now 173 graduated, incubated, or sandbox projects. That's quite a
Yep.
bit.
Yeah.
There's
A few. I think maybe there's maybe one or two who have been retired, removed.
oh,
Either they got.
it's a whole nother level. It's like, what would that be called?
Well,
I don't have a word there.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of an interesting thing that has, gotten more behind the scenes, more attention is, they're, I mean, the most recent to retire was because it had been, deprecated in favor of a replacement CNC project. So, there's no harm in that, right?
Right.
Um, but there's always the constant fear, from the CNCF is that, you've got a vendor behind a project and they contribute it and to the sandbox, or maybe it gets to incubation and then they just kind of ghost rider it and jump off and let it falter and kind of crash to the ground. And so um and there are kind of two sides to that. There are definitely not naming names, but there are projects that, the maintainers are like, you know what, this is not worth it, and they just kind of fork it and go away. And maybe it lives, maybe it doesn't. And then there are projects that the startup goes out of business or gets acquired and they don't care anymore, and they didn't leave a healthy enough project to maintain. And so that's the fear for the CNCF is they're going to be left holding the bag. And so they're both trying to tighten down on what gets in and, maybe raise the bar a little bit going forward, but also at the same time, like things are really slow in moving through the process just because there's a lot of volunteers. And, I have nothing but respect for volunteers, but um, they all have day jobs. And, when the work piles up, your volunteer stuff falls to the side, and so you can't you can't volunteer to do everything, and so the CNCF has some folks who hopefully I'll be working with to like unstick some of the processes.
Okay. All right. Well, that seems like a very diplomatic way to say it. I don't know, from what I see, there's a little bit of tension there between like what is a project, how to get projects in, things like that. So, just to finish out the numbers, though, there what I guess there are 219,000 contributors. There's over 14.8 million contributions and over 190 countries representatives. So, I don't know. Those are some. I mean, I guess like everyone, vanity metrics are vanity, but like those are pretty good
Yeah,
metrics.
vanity metrics are vanity, but I think we've talked about it in Slack and on the show a bit. Like there's I'm not the only project maintainer who's noticed like this AI uh, spam of contributions, and I've heard a lot of folks say like they're not going to do Hacktoberfest anymore.
Mhm.
They're going to pull away from projects that from anything that encourages drive by contributions, because a lot of people are mechanizing AI tools to say like, oh, the code needs this. So I've had people submit, documentation PRs that literally just dump it into Chat GPT and it punches up your adjectives, right? And I'm like, fuck that. Um, those are junk. And the most recent person who submitted one of those had done it to 60 repos.
Mhm.
Some of them are CNCF, but they were all open source. So that's just, when I see the 219K contributors, part of me gets a little flinchy.
Right.
I get a little twitch. Um, but
Well, it's kinda funny
people
how it's kinda like, this started in social media, like fake followers and stuff like that, and it's like so now we're seeing a little bit I don't know if you wanna call it spam, but you would call it like, I don't know, like sort of,
spam. It's unwanted. It's
yeah,
unwanted in my inbox because now I have to deal with it, right? So now I have
right,
to go through because as a maintainer, you have to, you want to give people your time. You want to give them, thanks for submitting something. But then if they're just like mechanizing a bunch of junk, you're like, oh my God, it's like saying, please take me off your list to every piece of spam you get. It's just a waste of time. Um, and so, they're wasting our time. And if you're doing this, please stop. We know what
stop
you're up
doing that.
to. Just stop.
You're on
Same
you're
goes
on
for
to
people who are automatically bumping your dependency versions. Um, Unappreciated, right? Just totally do not touch our dependencies. We know they're bad. Maybe, you know, if you submitted some tests that showed why they worked, but just coming in and updating our dependencies for us does not help. We know. We
So
know.
this is where this is going to lead to a new CNCF project where there's some type of AI that will do some type of automated review of the contribution to see if it's even worthy of someone actually taking the time and effort
Well,
to
I mean,
review it.
I guess if your project's perfect, you have all sorts of regression tests that, when somebody submits a PR, it'll go through all these and, green light it that, this is worth merging and doesn't blow up your test. But, not everything is covered, and just monkeying with dependencies is not the way to go.
All right, all right. Well, now one of the other things you wrote, kind of here in the notes, was something like everything sort of dipped in artificial intelligence or AI. So give me.
Yes.
And there was a lot of this week. We probably won't get to it today, but there's a lot of announcements from OpenAI as well. So like, what sort of like expand on that? Like, is everything just like is everyone
Uh,
just slapping it on, or is someone doing something interesting with AI?
I don't know. I mean, I spent a lot of time, in my own little kiosk, talking to people about our project, but a lot of people like just everywhere you looked, people were like, "Oh, what can we do with some ML? We get some data and we're going to do something with it." So there was a fair number of folks who are like, "Hey, you guys are, tell me about the kinds of data you're pulling." Because everyone wants to know, like, they're looking at everything like, what can I do with that data source? What sort of intelligence? And people were already doing this, right? We already had our ML ops. We already had AI observability kind of stuff happening, but it's kind of like turned into a pandemic fever where there's a lot of startups who are AI washing their stuff, and we had a long conversation last night about curve fitting as being the new AI, where it's literally just like, come on, this is it's college level statistics, but it's not AI. And
Right.
so there's definitely a lot of people looking to rub some AI on some things, um, and everywhere you looked, it was AI, ML, AI, ML. Um, and there's definitely going to be a lot of value there. But it's just like what we talked about with Copilot. I mean, you still have to know what you're doing at the end of the day. You can't just blindly merge stuff. So you see, AI ops and AI, the coding stuff, the infrastructure stuff, the monitoring stuff. They're rubbing AI on all of it, but if you have black boxes making black boxes, you can't read anything. So I have fear that you know we're going to get a bunch of stuff that nobody understands, and when it goes pear-shaped, nobody understands how to debug it.
Yeah, that seems a good way. Well, yeah, maybe we'll touch on a little bit about OpenAI sort of like seeking to make all of this obsolete anyway. So we'll talk about that in a second. Now, what's up? I don't know. This is another thing, like backstage. So what are you referring to? The backstage, the
The project.
the project? So like
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
what's going on? Is
Backstage.
everyone using it? Like I
Oh,
can't
it's
remember
hot. It's hot.
where are we at in the hype cycle? Like I thought like everyone loved it. Is everyone still love it or is it
Everyone's still
going like
loving Backstage. Yeah, yeah.
okay?
A lot of
Because there was a time everyone loved Jira. That's not so much anymore, but there was a time. I'm
well,
just saying.
I don't want to make people feel bad, but every it feels like every KubeCon something's getting the love, and then you're like, wait, I thought we loved that thing, and we're not talking
Mhm.
about it as much this time. So Backstage definitely getting a lot of a couple of startups I've seen, people a lot of questions about what can we do with Backstage, and I get it. Like I get. y- I mean, I understand
Give
why
everyone the
people
quick,
like.
I believe it rolled out of Spotify. Is that right? Is that where it came
Yeah,
from?
yeah.
Give everyone
So
the like 2 seconds on it. Mhm.
yeah, so I mean, I learned a little, behind the scenes of what's going on. Like, Spotify predominantly Sweden based, and a lot of the engineers who worked on Backstage were former, folks from other open source companies who weren't part of like the Spotify brain trust, and so they were like, hey, let's go spin this thing out. And so Spotify was like, well, why don't you guys, you can keep working on it and keep working at Spotify. So it's, they because it's weird to think that you can get backstage support from Spotify, but there are
Oh, I
definitely other
didn't realize
companies.
that. Okay, so
Yeah, yeah.
that's okay. So listen to Taylor
You can
Swift
buy some
and
tunes, and you can buy some
okay. All right, did
internal
not know that.
developer portal. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what had been announced previously. I don't know the stage of it because there are definitely other companies jumping into the breach. I've seen managed backstage as startups and backstage as a service kinds of stuff, and people doing custom backstage work. And so I got a fair number of questions about the limited backstage plugin I wrote. Um, it's just it's got a lot of traction, but I still feel you know eh, internal developer portals are snowflakes by definition, right? They're internal. And so, supporting them is going to be a hard problem, but I guess if you charge enough, everything becomes doable, right?
Well, we should check in. We'll make a note. I think the next KubeCon's in Paris, so we'll check in. We'll see. Take the temperature. See, is backstage still kind of the exciting topic, or is it faded? Because the other topic you put on here that we talked about a lot. I think last time there was KubeCon was WebAssembly, and like I don't
Yeah.
know, maybe I feel like it has quieted down a little bit. But what's going on? What's going on with
I
WebAssembly?
mean, it's the booths. There are fewer WebAssembly booths. I know a couple of WebAssembly startups have come and gone. But the bigger ones, I guess, are were here, and I didn't get a chance to really talk with any of them, but I just felt like there was less talk. Last time, there was a very
Yeah, that was like
very
the new
loud.
thing, right? Uh-huh.
That was I mean, it's still new, it's still early, still building traction, but I feel like there was less of an emphasis on it this time. Definitely AI, ML, and backstage took some of the oxygen out, but you know, I'm sh they're probably fine. I don't know. They're probably fine.
That's right. And then what about open telemetry? That's like that's I don't know. That's a show favorite for
Yeah,
us.
yeah. I mean,
That's like our
open
roots.
to
We're always gonna have a soft spot for open telemetry on software defined talk.
I think I saw that they have GA'd, so they're hitting big milestones. I think they're probably getting fast tracked for graduation or something. They know somebody I don't know. But
Come on,
yeah,
it's
so I
monitoring
mean,
data. Everybody needs it. There's 1,000 vendors who are like, why don't we just all, this is it. We just need to use
well,
this.
that was the fun thing is I went to the technical the tag for observability, and um, they had on a slide that OpenCost had graduated incubation, and I was like, you put it on a slide, you can't take that back. But we haven't
It's
graduated to
binding.
incubation yet. I was like, slides are binding, but unfortunately, it's not quite there yet.
Well, you need to
Oh,
just
soon.
sneak in open cost right behind open telemetry. Be like, guys, it's really the same thing.
It's the
As
same
soon as
thing
you start monitoring this, you're gonna want to know how much it costs. You might as well just bring
Well,
us along for the ride.
but the good thing is, they were like, well, we need to see more cost monitoring, and I was first in line for the Q&A. Tap the mic and was like, I've got all your cloud bills now over in open cost, so you other projects, we don't need you. So,
All right,
so
next.
if you're thinking you need more open source cost monitoring, come talk to me, because I think open cost is we've squared that off. We now read all your cloud bills, and what more do you need?
Maybe we can do it. Maybe we can like rally some of the software defined talk listeners that were at the show or the future show and have them all go, ask the same question 10 times in a row. That's how people like, start to respond. Okay.
Yeah,
So
but
that's good.
we'll be supporting open telemetry soon because you got to have it.
Gotta have, I mean, listen, everyone has to have it. Open telemetry. That's, that project can't go fast enough. There's a million people that want that. All right. So you mentioned the keynotes. I feel like, you hit on this. What about Startup Fest? Was it good?
Yeah,
Was it
yeah.
bad?
So
This
Startup
more
Fest was
importantly,
was
were you there
really
as an
good.
investor, like an investor research? You're like, I'm gonna invest in which one are you investing in?
No, 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 no. So I mean, I have a lot of stuff that I can't talk about from Startup Fest because I got to go behind the scenes afterwards.
Mhm.
But
Okay, that'll be in the Patreon episode for
yeah,
everybody. If you
yeah, yeah.
subscribe to the
That'll
Patreon
be
episode, you can listen to
the
that.
happy hour episode. But so Startup Fest was a co-located event that was intended for folks who are doing open source startups. So the CNCF, was on their calendar, um, and the kind of the people, the key hosts of it were Erica Brescia, she's now at, I think, Red Point is the name of the VC she's at,
Mhm. Yeah.
and she used to be COO at GitHub and had Bitnami, and she's been around open source for a long time, a very um, prestigious figure. And then Jesse Robbins, who was the director of operations for Amazon before starting Chef, and another startup, and then now he's involved in HeavyBit, the VC company that's really heavy on developer tooling, and they sponsor some other podcasts, and so they were like, boom, them, and then another.
Well, like, what was like
Uh,
Erica? Was she there just like
they were there. They
searching
were there
for?
advising. They were no, 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 no. That
Okay.
was the thing. It wasn't like VCs having people pitch to them. This
Mhm.
was this was VCs, um, and they also had interview and some other folks come in, but it was VCs talking about how to do open source businesses,
Okay.
how you need to be pitching it, and what you need to think about what the climate's like.
Oh, really?
I mean,
Okay.
because
Huh?
like 2 years ago, if you could fog up a glass and say open source, they'd give you $5 million. But now,
Mhm.
now times have changed, right? The market's gotten tight. They threw up some really nice graphs that essentially VC last year 250% of this year.
Okay.
You know,
Wow.
so I mean, it's been a big drop. It's been
Mhm.
a big drop, and a lot of people who raised in 2021, 2022 are starting to look for that next round, and it's not there. And so,
Well, now what they
the
say, I
mark.
can't help but ask, like, what were they were they pitching like open core? Like, what were
Oh, no, 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 no. I mean,
what business models were they endorsing?
so there was an opportunity to submit questions, and
Huh?
the QR code wasn't back up when I finally remembered what I wanted to ask. Which the question I wanted to ask is like, as a VC, when do you tell them to put the rug pull in? Um,
Nice. Uh-huh,
but Jesse
uh-huh,
told me, like, that is that's not something Heavy Bit does. He said, like,
uh-huh.
that nobody is going in saying there has to be a rug pull, but he said, at least not from reputable people,
Mhm.
their firms. But I mean, mostly they were talking about like you need to. This is you need to be able to show with the seed round you need to show that you have an idea that people will use. And said, really, by the time you get to an A, it used to be like, oh, we've got an idea, now we're ready to go to market. Like, no, by an A, you need to have, some founder closed business, which, that's a different, that is actually a different,
So it's like sales. We wanna see some
position.
sales before we give
Yeah,
you some
we
actual
want to see
money,
some
right?
sales,
You know,
some not just a sale,
like a
and so
couple.
we need to see a repeatable sales motion closed by the founder. So we need
Mhm.
to know that like you actually understand how to sell your product, because probably eventually they're going to bring in some VP of sales who actually knows how to like bang down the doors at all the enterprises, but um, you need to have something that people are willing to pay for in a repeatable fashion. It can't be like my buddy at Comcast, gave us a $200,000 deal. It's like, no, I've got 10 buddies, and I sold to 10 of them, and we got to $1 million. If you got 10 buddies who'll do that,
Then you're
you got
good.
better friends than I do, or at least deeper pockets than my
Yeah, you
friends.
got $1 million
But
of ARR.
yeah,
They're
yeah. But I
everyone's
mean, the
ready to,
point
like,
was like
invest in that.
you actually have to have a pretty strong business model uh sorted out. Yeah, and he's like, and for God's sake, never ever bring me those consulting dollars. He's like, I don't want those. We throw those in the trash. That does not count towards your million dollars, right?
Well, it sounds like I don't
um
know, as you're talking here, we're gonna have to get I don't know if Erica or maybe the other
or
person.
Jesse, yeah.
We have to get him on the show because I think I don't know, I got a lot of questions too. It's like because
I have
that
a
a
lot of
part of
questions.
that
Yeah, it was
part of
great.
that
It
is
was
like
great.
is part of that is them just telling you like the most basic stuff. It's like we want this, we want
Yeah, but
customers, we want traction. But we all know, listen, if we were to walk in and show with the right thing that's just taken off like a rocket ship, like, there's always another way. You know what I mean?
well,
There's
yeah,
always
yeah.
another way. And I think like I know Eric is over at Red Point. I think Logan Bartlett's over there too. Like I don't know, they'll often interview and kind of like just there's just a very standard thing they say, but I just kind of know, like, if you walk in with sort of something that's just like just I don't know, like OpenAI is just the best example, right? Like it can kind
Yeah,
of
well,
come
yeah,
out of
they said,
nowhere,
let's not.
and
He said,
rules can be
you can.
reset pretty quickly.
Yeah, yeah. He
So
said if you show up for AI, you could fog a glass and still get your 5 million, right? But
yeah,
AI will still get you stupid money, but everything else is tighter. And developer tools and infrastructure. You need to actually have something that makes sense for people to pay for.
yeah.
And you need to understand the market you're selling into. Like you can't be targeting. You can't be targeting SREs. You need to be targeting like the people who actually pay for stuff. So like it was
But I think we got
a
to go
very
back and
good
ask
4 or
these
5
people.
hours.
Like
Yeah.
we should say, I don't know, maybe we'll leave it with this. Like, some of the questions I have for any of the VCs who want to come on, it's like, okay, like if we heard everything you said, but like you do seem to continuously fund these monitoring companies where there are just like a million. So let's not we're not all that creative if we're
Hey,
just
hey,
writing
hey,
checks for
hey.
the same thing over and over. So
Our good friends at Datadog just bumped their stock 30%.
yeah,
I
they just
love it.
crushed it. So we get it. Like we understand why, but
That's why. That's why.
let's not pretend that like, oh, it all has to be new when you're just like, what you could do is monitor that data and just sell some subscriptions to it. And like, we could probably write you a check for that.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. All right. Well, good. That sounds like it was Startup
That
Fest.
was, yeah, that was
It
Startup
was kind
Fest
of
was
fun.
really
Yeah.
good. Yeah. And there were, a lot of familiar faces in the audience, and I it was a good time.
All right. Well, here, last topic on the whole KubeCon here. Like, other than everything you've mentioned here, any other good hallway track discussion items, whether it be on point on the technology or just job searching or what? Like, that's always the fun part. What are people
Ooh,
talking about
yeah.
out
There were a fair number of layoffs right before the conference, and so there
there?
were there were definitely people who like had scratched out their employers' names on their badges. That was
Oh, okay. Looking for
that was
jobs.
spicy, right? There they got them reprinted and like, how come it says self, on your badge? It's like, because my my former employer paid the ticket and I don't want their name on my badge. So there was
Feel
because I
that.
mean VMware had uh they axed a bunch of folks last week.
Hmm.
Um and I think Nokia cut a bunch, and so there were and I had a guy who's like, yeah, uh, he had WeWork crossed out.
Oh, bad time to be at WeWork. Well, if anyone's looking for a job, I do know of at least one listener found a job through the software defined talk Slack. So there's a jobs channel. So yeah, so if you're looking,
Yeah.
not that many, but maybe if people either start posting jobs or people just posting they're looking, that's always kind of nice. All right, Matt. Well, I think that was a good summary of KubeCon. I think everyone, it probably was like you were there. Like everyone's just like attended for
What
two
more do
full
you need?
days. Like
Yeah.
what else could you possibly need? Now, I thought we'd just touch on this briefly because it sort of was kind of related to some of the AI stuff we talked about. So OpenAI had their first, I think they call it, I guess it's their first developer day or developer conference. A bunch of different things came out. But I thought the thing maybe we could just talk about is that one of the things they focused in on was that you can essentially now build your own chat GPT. So there's going to be like I don't know, let's call it
Yeah.
like a GPT store. And
Hmm.
one of the things that they've allowed you to do is basically to use chat GPT to create your own GPT, so if you will,
Right, right.
your
Like a
industry
plugins.
specific or your, technology specific thing. And so, this is kind of interesting back to a little bit around KubeCon was like, for a while, it seemed like everyone was pitching, like, I'm going to take and build a model for this specific, use case, and then I'm going to go sell it. And it feels like OpenAI has just completely cut the legs out of that. Like, well, you don't even have
Yep.
to like do that. You can kind of just use ChatGPT to create your own model, which seems like an interesting idea. But then going further, it seems like they're trying to follow the Apple App Store model, and of course, every startup always has the app store slide in their deck, right? It's always like, and we're going to build an app store. Like there's never been a startup that at least at the beginning wasn't like, we're going to build an app store. So I don't know what to make of this. I mean, it's just so new and it's like hard to get your head around the idea around creating specific GPTs seems like what people want, right? But it seems so obvious that people want it, almost feels wrong for whatever reason. But then the idea that you then put them into like a store and you start downloading them, I don't know. I just, what's your take on this? Do you think this is going the right way? Or is this
I
sort of
mean,
like
it's going the right
applying
way if
the
you're OpenAI.
I know, but I wonder though if there's falling into this trap, and then maybe we'll steal some Ben Thompson here around. It's like, at the beginning, you just kind of take exactly what you have today and you try to recreate it in the new thing, right? And that's often not really where the value is unlocked, right? So the idea of like, take a newspaper, put it online, it'll be just as successful. We all know that doesn't work. So I don't know. I'm a little worried that like, oh, well, we're just going to create all these GPTs and throw them in an app store and everyone's going to make money. It's like, yeah, it kind of does make sense when you say it, but it also kind of says like, no, there could be something completely new behind this that's going to just, if you will, remove the need for this altogether. I don't know. What do you think?
I think we're going to see both. I think. I mean, I'm as a potential consumer. Like, I guess I would want to start with the OpenAI specialty. I'd start in the App Store, right? It's like you've got some LLM, domain tied to a plugin or a GPT specific to an element. Somebody's already done a lot of the legwork for me. Um, yeah, I guess I would try it that way. It really depends on what you need. If but my understanding of it is, you just there's not enough access to go around right now. I mean, I literally talked to somebody who's like, I'm on a wait list of a week for access to a NVIDIA 800. And he's like, and then when I get it, I got to split it across, dozens of workloads, different LLMs. And, so I mean, the guy literally, he was coming to talk to me about like fractional cost of a GPU. And I was like, dude, that sucks. And he's like, and it's 30,000 a month, right? For
Wow.
one
Wow.
box. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, as long as that shortage exists and, it's a, if the OpenAI folks can deliver access to people, they're going to build up, they're going to jumpstart, they're going to, jump ahead of everybody who can't even get any access. And, people will get used to using it in this form. And, later on, somebody will say, well, why don't we build our own? I'm like, well, because we've been using OpenAI for 3 months, and it's going to be this hard to switch, and because it's going to be a while before prices, I'm not going to say come down, but become
Pretty well
more
normalized a
readily
little bit.
available. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we're definitely in a gold rush, and right now, OpenAI owns all the pixes or picks.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I do think looking ahead though, I just think, if you're building a company around this, like you got to think many steps ahead because it feels like, I don't
Yeah.
know the word Sherlocking is the right metaphor, but it's like, whatever you're doing,
Yep.
it's very possible OpenAI is going to do it even better. And I think, the metaphor I kind of think about all these like chat GPT or these GPT stores, like, well, really what you want is just like, you just want to add it to the prompt, right? You just want to be like, as a developer, I am doing X. And then all behind the scenes, like ChatGPT just kind of figures out, like, oh yeah, like I'm going to use this model. Like it's all just sort of becomes, a black box to you. Where I don't want to go pick out apps and click on it. Like you kind of have to do it on an iPhone. There's nothing there without it, but like you kind of think of this glorified intelligence. So I don't know. I would just worry. Like back to like everyone. I think what you call
Well,
it. Like,
when you say you worry, where's your worry? Is your worry
well,
that
that's what I would.
you're
I
going to
should say
get
worry.
locked into a platform?
No. I
Because
think
that's
end user
it's
wise,
totally going to happen.
yeah, end user, this is what we want. I think if I was starting a company, like you were saying, I think you had the quote like around like college level math or whatever. Like I think people, and there was like, I can't remember who I got it from. Someone called it, they were like, you could basically import, structured data like CSVs, and someone called it chat CSV. I'm like, oh yeah, definitely. So you kind of see like anyone building these things really quickly and who's going to like build a company around it and be like, oh yeah, we're going to do the XYZ of this specific domain. It's like, it feels like that could just be over in a day. They could just
Oh,
announce like
absolutely.
we built all
And,
that in the model and we don't even need you anymore. So
so what's your choices end up like, well, we're going to have the on-prem version. We're going to be in the OpenAI marketplace and hope
uh-huh.
that they don't, AWS us.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it is one of those things where it's like, I think the thing, if you're really trying to build something here is like, you got to really make some big assumptions of like, a lot of this will be built, but what isn't going to be figured out easily is like the new interaction model. And there's like lots of debate, right? Will it be
Yeah.
voice? Will it be this text-based thing? Will
It's
it
not going
be
to be voice.
will it be the co-pilot, right? Like, and that's probably where everyone needs to test. You need like, 1,000 different companies testing 1,000 different modalities, and then it's going to happen and we're all going to be like, oh yeah, of course
Of
this is the way
course.
you do that, right? And it's like, because right now it is not obvious. So
Right.
all right, well, one other thing I thought I'd throw out, just because we talked a little bit about KubeCon this week, was what is it, Oracle SUSE in what is it, CIQ. They have come out and they've officially launched their version. I guess it's Open ELA, which is going to be their official version, trying to become the new RHEL. So I like to just watch this, right? So we remember
Yeah.
we had the whole thing, the license change. Everyone was mad about it. These companies came out and said, hey, we're going to create a new standard. So they shipped the standard, right? So that's always step one. They actually did it. So I don't know. Like, I guess the next thing we have to watch is like, will Open ELA, can it start to eat away at, if you will, the RHEL brand, right? And be like, yeah, eventually people are going to start preferring Open ELA to RHEL. And I think it's a very long-term game, right? It's not something that's going to happen overnight. But the fact that they actually put it out there, it's almost like we can mark, okay, in a year from now, will some enterprises have actually switched over and be like, nope, we're not using RHEL. We really want Open ELA. And in 5 or 10 years, when we go to all the different vendors who have to, like, if you will, support different operating systems, will Open ELA, at least be a parity with RHEL, or will it have displaced it, or will it be forgotten? So that's kind of like, I don't know. It's just a game I want to
Yeah.
watch. So
Yes.
we'll see. So
Yeah,
we'll
I'm
see.
waiting to see. I can't say I ran into anybody this week who said they were running OpenELA yet.
So, but we should that's what we should check out. We should see, like, does it happen over
Hey,
time? So we'll
yeah.
see now.
Does
At
anybody
least
run
they
it?
have an entry. They have an entry into the game. So, all right. And then finally, here before as we wrap up, Matt, I just, the world has been waiting for an update. As you remember last week, as everyone remembers, Matt Ray is looking for another keyboard. So give us an update on your quest for a new keyboard. And there was several people suggested you should get a switch tester. So tell us, did you get one?
I
And where
did
are
not
you
get a
at in your
switch
testing?
tester. Yes, yes. So I don't have my keyboard yet because it was shipped to my house in Sydney. So it will be
Yeah.
waiting for me next week. the unveiling. But let me tell you, I've run into um, 3 people now who have switch testers. When I mention keyboards, I kind of go like this, knowing look, like, you got a switch tester?
Yeah. Right.
And
Yeah.
so I do not have a switch tester, but I will let you know that I went with the Gatoron Brown switches,
All right.
the
Well, tune
pros.
in next week because Matt Ray will actually have used the keyboard, and I'm predicting he will have some type of very important feedback on it. I don't know if it's going to be good. I don't know if it's going to be bad. I just know there's going to be feedback. So, okay. Uh, a couple other things here. So on listener feedback this week, I wanted to say we did get a little feedback about, remember a few weeks ago, I was talking about Google hiring. Here's what I learned, right? So at Google, there are basically job families, right? And you can move within the same family pretty easily. And they said like product and engineering is mostly in this T ladder. But then there are other ladders, like there's like the O ladder for different, or an E ladder for specific functions like cloud sales and customer engineering. Now, if you want to move between the E ladder and the T ladder, that's a whole process. That's a whole interview process.
Mm.
So, the thing about moving between Google, it sounds like if you're within the specific ladder, you can move around. And it sounds like people can move from GCP to Google and YouTube if you're in the T ladder. Now, if you're in the
Now,
cloud sales ladder, I think it's harder. It's much harder. You're going to go
oh,
through much more interviewing if you want to like move over to something else. And
do,
they
do you
gave me a
think they
little.
have like? Do you think they have like softball teams that compete against each other, like the O's versus the T's? Maybe some
I don't know.
hats,
They
some
probably do. Like
swag.
it seems like
I
it's
mean,
always funny.
do people have ladder loyalty?
That's a good question. Maybe
That's my
someone will tell me
team,
this week.
Team
Maybe
O.
someone will tell me how it is. Because like, is there a hierarchy of ladders? I think it's a fair question. Now, there's the other thing is you can look in the URLs of the Google career site, and I won't list them. I won't say them all, but like you can basically see it's like data center underscore center or underscore operations, right? So that sort of clues you into like
Sure,
what
sure.
ladder you're in. So
Do,
you kind
do
of
they do
reverse
they put like
engineer.
OET? Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I
you
mean,
could
maybe they
just
should, but you can kind of figure out like, okay, product management, that's going to probably be ladder T. So that kind of gives you a little clue as to like if you were able to get that job, kind of what opportunities you would have. So there you go. So that now, I think we've exhausted everything you ever wanted to know about interviewing at Google. Of course, you have to answer all their hard computer engineering problems. So like, I don't know.
how many manhole covers?
Yeah, how many manholes, of course, how many gas stations in the United States, all the things that definitively show you will be a
That's
great
right.
employee. Like we know there's not a
Yes.
doubt in our minds that questions like that lead to incredibly successful people. So would never challenge such a thing. Also, Matt, we have some news from Software Defined Talk. Did you know, Matt, we are now a podcast on YouTube Music. So one of the listeners, Brian, asked about us
Ooh.
getting on there. So this is what it is. We're now in there in YouTube Music. If you search for Software Defined Talk, it was a little unusual. So you have to create a quote playlist in YouTube to do this, and then you call it a podcast. So if you're listening on YouTube Music, what you're going to get is the audio or the video of this specific thing that we stream on YouTube. So it's the unedited version, if you will. It seems like that was a good
Ooh.
place to put this.
The
So I don't
raw.
know. I was not sure. I can't determine if people really want YouTube Music. At least one person did. So I'm happy to do it. And hopefully, if you want it, it's there. And if people really want the edited version, and like, I can probably figure out a way to do that. But I figured, hey, use the regular RSS feed if you want the edited version. If you want this nonsense version that we're listening to, use YouTube Music. So we'll see.
There you
And then
go.
finally, conferences, I think they're pretty much all wrapped up. Matt's at KubeCon this week. Cote's over at VMware Explore. He'll probably be back next week. I don't know about the RISC-V Summit. Maybe we'll get an update from Matt's coworker. The next one looks like January 29th. That'll be the VAT conference in Texas. And of course, if you want us to advertise your conference, email us. We can probably work out some type of media sponsorship. And also, I should have mentioned too, if you want stickers, just send your postal address to stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com. And I will be happy to send you a sticker anywhere in the world. Or if you find Matt Ray at a conference, he says he still has stickers. So he gave some
Yep.
out as well. So that's the other one. If you can wait till maybe KubeCon Europe, maybe Matt will have stickers there as well. All right, Matt. So having said all that, what's your recommendation this week?
Oh, so my recommendation this week is, I had a bunch of stuff shipped to my hotel because it was cheaper to buy it in America than Australia. So I'll be flying a bunch of things back. But
Right.
one of the things I got is an external portable monitor, right?
Okay.
Little 15-inch monitor. Um, And you're probably saying, "Oh, that's great, but don't you have an external monitor back at home? And don't you have an M1 MacBook Air and you can only have one external monitor?"
Mm-hmm.
False.
Oh,
So,
okay. Yeah.
false. Yeah. So there's a technology called DisplayLink that allows you, with supported external devices, um, to over USB to have like a screen emulator. So it actually magically sends a signal to the monitor, and it thinks that you've got you can do multi monitors with a MacBook Air. So I haven't gotten. It is working with DisplayLink. So check back next week. I should have, I've got my laptop screen. I've got my big nice 32-inch Dell, and then I'll have my new 15-inch vertical for documents. So all
I
on
like it.
a simple MacBook Air. I don't need any of that pro stuff.
That's right. I don't know. This is another thing where like the MacBook Air limited to just really one external display seems wrong.
Oh, well,
That
I
seems
actually,
I
it's
I'm a little frustrated by
technically
that. The
no,
fact
no.
that you have to do this weird stuff to make it work, I don't know, seems wrong.
Yeah, well, I was like, is this just the limitation Apple put on it? So I went to Asahi Linux, the guys running
Yeah.
porting Linux to all the Apple Silicon stuff, and they pointed out that actually it's a technical limitation of the hardware. So, technically it doesn't support this. It's because it's rendering stuff to a USB device. And so it's like you wouldn't want to use this for like gaming or anything needing really high refresh rates. I think it limits it. It might be limited to 60 hertz, which is fine because that's what I have, but it's actually a 144 hertz monitor. Or megahertz or gigahertz, whatever monitors are in.
Whatever
It's one of
hurts you
those
want.
things. It's a gaming portable monitor, but
Uh-huh.
it's only going to get used at 60 when I use DisplayLink at home.
I agree. Listen, you've laid out the case. It can be done. You've laid out how, and I look forward to your full review in your home. I'm just saying, Apple, come on. Come on. Like what I mean, what are we doing
You
here?
hit us with the
Why? I mean,
single
they make
external
the hardware.
monitor and the 8 gigs of RAM.
I mean, come on,
Come
but I'm
on.
just like we even the old laptops, the old Mac laptops, you could have two monitors and you could have your laptop display open. So it's just one of these things where it's like,
Yeah.
yes, I'm sure they'd be like, hey, most people don't have two monitors, but come on, guys. I mean, it's not like
But
we're like
you know what?
reinventing the wheel.
That's why I got this thing. It was ridiculously cheap. It was under $100.
Yeah.
Under
Well,
$100
still,
for a
Apple needs to do
15-inch
better.
gaming portable monitor. I mean, they had $79 ones.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good. Well, it's fine. I'm not
$59 you
against
can do
using
a
cheap monitors.
13-inch monitor.
I'm with the cheap monitors. I just think Apple should make it easy to daisy chain
Yeah.
up a bunch of cheap monitors. It's not like, listen, I don't need 6K. I don't have $5,000 for these crazy monitors. I'm rocking these old school Dell 1440s. They're fun.
It'll be
Good.
like when I worked at the cash register company. I had 6 monitors, but none of them were bigger than 12 inches.
Right. Oh, we need a picture of that. All right. Well, that's a good recommendation. My recommendation, new book this week that I've been reading. It's Same as Ever. It's from Morgan Housel. He also, I guess, what he wrote, The Psychology of Money. So I enjoyed it. It's sort of a book of like, if you will, like as it kind of implies, there are just things that never change that are like good to think about. I also put a link in here to a podcast interview with him, and you can also listen to his podcast. So all those things for free. So if you want to check him out, see if you like what he's saying, you can listen to some free stuff. And then he kind of recaps a lot of it in the book. So I think the book is more, if you will, a nice recap of many of his ideas. So you can either get them for free or you can buy the book and have them in one nice, of course, when I say book, I always mean audio book. So you can have in a nice audio book that you can listen to while you read, while you walk the dog. Of course, you could read the book, but I'm never doing that. I'm never reading any of those books. We all know that. So, all right. Well, if this is the first time you've ever listened to Software Defined Talk, welcome. You can subscribe right now in the podcast player of your choice, or you can subscribe now on YouTube Music. I'm excited to see the stats from YouTube Music. I'm sure it will be huge.
It'll be that guy who you did it for.
No, I saw a few more. There was like, it was at least in the
He better
10s.
appreciate it.
No, he appreciated it. I'm sure it's good. And listen, hey man, I'm game to try almost any type of YouTube, any type of podcast integration. If it works, we'll give it a shot. If you want the show notes, right now you can actually look in the podcast player. You can probably see all the show notes. Or in this case, you can go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/440. That'll be a web page of all the topics we discussed here today and many topics that we did not. You can also sign up for our newsletter, get all the show notes in the email inbox in your Gmail. That way you can just search later on and be like, what were they talking about? What was Matt Ray's recommendation for a new monitor? Just that's what I do. That's half the time the reason I have the newsletter. And with that, we will talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.
All right, Matt, good job. Appreciate you making it happen from KubeCon.
Yeah.
Always the remote setup's always a little challenging. Systems guy, appreciate you watching along here and chatting. Thunderbolt limitation, yes, I know. Like all of, I have now read many of the articles about why there are limitations, but that's
I
my
need
whole
to
point.
the Asahi link. Let me find that, and I'll put it in the notes.
I know, but it's like we should not accept it. It's a limitation Apple has just put on us. That's what we should not be like. We should not accept it. We should be like, your video chipset, whatever, should support at least 2 monitors. I mean, at least. I mean, 2 external monitors.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah. So, it got cross-posted to Mac Rumors. Asahi creator says one monitor support is because of hardware.
Right.
So, yeah.
But that's Apple. They can do better. They're the ones.
Well,
They could
I
just,
know, but
they
he was saying it wasn't that they just didn't have, like, 2 plugs on the box. He's like, it's actually just like the
yeah,
chips
no, the
on it.
video card, they've like,
Yeah, the video
I would
card
say,
just doesn't do
right,
multi-monitor.
they limited it on purpose, right? They just like, you know what?
Well,
If we want,
he
if
was
those
like,
guys,
no,
we
no,
want
no.
them to
His
buy
point
the
was it's a
MacBook Pros with
yes.
that to get, and then they want to make us double up and pay for the RAM. So it's like, come on,
Well,
guys. No,
yeah. I mean, his point was it's just a shitty video card. It's not that it doesn't have 2 heads, because lots of stuff. Uh, Raspberry Pis have 2 heads. He said it's just
that really
yeah.
should be. We should have put that in the show. That really maybe make that the after show. It's like, yeah, that's really the answer. It's like, yeah, the video card is just bad. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So they need to make us
I
a better
mean,
video.
if you can do dual head and a Raspberry Pi, but the question I have about like the 8 gigs of RAM is like, I was under the impression that the onboard RAM for Macs was shared as video RAM,
It is. You're absolutely
which
right.
means 8 gigs
That's
is even
the whole
worse. The better your screen gets, the worse your RAM performance for your applications
right.
gets.
This gets into like the latest stuff. They're all like, I don't know if you read all the press and they show all these crazy graphs that like they've done
I
something
know.
where like they allocate and
It's
only
got a
the
faster
RAM you need
connection.
for
Yeah.
the thing. And so like this is the benchmark we need. This is the whole thing. I don't know. I've like kind of to where we opened the show. Like my instinct is more RAM, but like who knows? Maybe they've figured out some stuff that we don't understand, which is more than possible. So all right, Systems Guy, and all right, everyone who listened or watched this on it. We appreciate it. Go subscribe to the podcast or subscribe if you watch it on YouTube. What do the kids say? Smash the subscribe button, like, hit the bell. I don't know. Do all of those things as well, too.
YOLO.
So,
They still say
All right.
YOLO. Mid.
All right. We'll end it there. Take care, everyone.